Hello and welcome to blackfilm.com. I'm your host, Ro Carter. Today we will be discussing a documentary called The Cannons. With me today is award-winning producer and director Stephen Hoffner and one of the hockey players in this documentary, Rayvon Hall. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thanks for coming on.
How you doing?
Good. Stephen, first question to you. This is some story you told here.
Thank
you. What made you decide to take on a project like this, and why do you feel it was such an important story to tell?
Yeah, I mean, let's just cut right to the business. Was this white dude making this movie about black hockey?
I wasn't going to say that.
Let's just get to the point. Well, firstly, I was brought to the story because of my time at the National Hockey League. So I'm a Canadian. So growing up here, it's pretty much like a religion, you know. So the game of hockey always sort of interested me, and my time at the NHL as a producer had many great years there, and met many great people. And I was introduced to this story by my friend Kevin Weeks, who's a former NHL goalie, ESPN analyst. And he's a person of color, so he was he did some philanthropy at Fort Dupont, and he provided me an intro, and I was just very interested to learn more, and that sort of became this 3-4 year journey. I got my co-director AJ Messier on board, and among many other people of color to help tell this story, like Robert Ford, who was our executive producer, who was integral in helping us create this, and met a lot of pretty awesome people like Rayvon Hall along the way.
Nice. Rayvon, question for you here. What do you remember on your first day at Fort Dupont that stood out the most to you?
One thing that will always stick with me from when I first started playing at Fort Dupont was the family, the environment. That will always stick out. It's just like one big happy family away from home.
And Stephen, that's what I really got to take my hat off to you. You really honed in on the family aspect of this film.
Yeah, I think that was like important for us because, well, me and AJ really kind of thought this was going to be more about the hockey and, this following this club, and it would be more part of a sports genre. But once we got to know the families a lot more, like Rayvon and Robert, who are featured in the film, and of course, Coach Neal, the personal stories became just that much more interesting. And we really felt like this wasn't just a sports documentary. It was really a human story. And that's where the sort of family dynamic really comes into play.
So, Stephen, did you know anything about Coach Neal before this, or did you hear about him at all?
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of news hits about Coach Neal in the news, a few like little features I saw on YouTube, but I didn't really know much about the man, to be honest, until I gave him a call I believe it was the spring of 2017, and we just talked for about an hour, and immediately, as anyone who's met Coach Neal, you realize what an unbelievable person he is, and that was when we decided to go down and visit the club, the following summer.
And is Coach Neal known outside of the DC area in the hockey world?
Rayvon, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Coach Neal is very known. He's a very nice man. He's just like a godfather that no one ever had before.
Yeah, I mean, I think like in Washington, D.C., that's actually we have a podcast called The Godfather of Hockey, and it's dedicated to Coach Neal, and that's what he's called around Southeast DC, the Godfather of Hockey. Most of the people that you see, people of color at Caps games or Caps fans in Washington, D.C., I think probably became fans because of Coach Neal, and I mean, outside of Washington, though, I'm not sure how much people know about Coach, and that was the point about getting this movie made so that all of America can see who he's all about.
Rayvon, I can hockey a little bit. I can play a little bit. I can ice skate. I can't go backwards. But I can go forward. I'm fast, forward. What was harder, learning how to ice skate or learning the rules of hockey as a young kid?
I think learning how to ice skate is actually harder than actually learning how to play the game.
How old were you when you started?
When I first started, I was 8.
Oh wow, Steven, you can home in on this. You guys are raised out of the womb, right, with the hockey stick in your hand. So you're missing 8 years of that. How much of a difference is that for a young kid learning to play hockey and really trying to go to that next level?
Well, it's funny because like Rayvon just said, 8 years, and in Canada, like a lot of those people are put on skates at like 3 years old, 4 years old.
Wow.
You know? And but Rayvon, I mean, you can attest to that. Was I think voted the most improved player in his program, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
What was that about?
So when I first started, I couldn't skate at all. I couldn't skate forward. I couldn't skate backwards. Couldn't go sideways. I couldn't even drop and get up. But now, I mean, it's a totally different thing. It's just a lot of progress and hard work and dedication. That's all.
So you talk about hard work and dedication and the progress. Rayvon, what was it like? I mean, how far is Fort Dupont from where you live? And what was that commute? Like, how much time are you really putting into, like, going to practice, getting ready, school, running around? Like, how much does that consume your life?
So Fort Dupont is like literally 10 minutes away from where I live.
Okay, so convenient.
So yes, it's very convenient. So, but if I was coming from school, it's still on the way home. So I was still able to get the practice into school and back home all in time.
So was it a community where you can just go in whenever you want, or there was like set times?
It was set times. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm gonna keep it real with you. It's set times. The area is not a good area, but the environment inside the ice rink is a totally different atmosphere.
And Steven, did you feel that energy when you were there with the film? Like, you know, you're in there like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna shoot this documentary, and then you're like, whoa, this is a different energy. Like, describe that energy for us.
It's a different vibe, you know. I mean, I think, especially if you understand the environment around that rink. You know, Southeast DC has obviously had a reputation for violence and a lot of I guess that type of events over the last few decades. And but when you go in that rink, there's this whole other vibe, a whole other energy, and I think that can be given to that program. It's sort of this lighthouse for a lot of those kids to get off the streets or just have something to do, and then not just that, but be given guidance from a man like Coach Neal, which is really sort of what it's all about.
And so you talked about the crime there and just that kind of atmosphere in that neighborhood. You know, Rayvon and Robert, in this film, there were two occasions where you're approached with a gun. I mean, how real is that, growing up in that neighborhood? And it's a two-part question. Steven, did you guys ever encounter that trying to film where they were like, yo, you got to get out of here in a couple minutes or it's going down?
Rayvon, you want to go first?
No, you go
ahead. I'll be honest. I mean, as a white dude from Canada,
were you shook a little bit?
I was shook. I was scared. I was scared. I just remember the first time we went down there in the summer. I was wearing like these banana colored boat shoes, and I'm carrying this like $15,000 camera, running around, and I'm like going to this kid Rayvon's house who I've never really hung out with or don't even know, and it's just like I'm like I don't know what's gonna happen, And I remember AJ and my executive producer Rob Walker Branshaw, who were there, and I remember I left Rayvon's, and then they like pulled a prank on me and like pulled up the street because they were waiting for me. They're like, and I'm just like running down the street with my camera. I don't even know what's going to go on. But on the real, I had never experienced any like violence or any weird encounter. Sometimes I was on Minnesota Avenue and like shooting scenics of the environment. People would say something, hey, what the hell are you doing? But that's no different than if you were downtown Toronto shooting, whatever. But I know that's my experience, but maybe, Rayvon can speak to some of his own, and Robert, if, I'm sure you see the film, they had their own experience.
Yeah, Rayvon, can you tell us about that experience for you?
Yeah, so it was one time I had a gun pulled out me at gunpoint. I was on my way home, coming from the barber shop, and some random dude didn't know, never seen him in the neighborhood before, pulled the gun out, basically tried to take everything, but didn't take anything from me because I still have everything that he basically wanted. But long story short, just be cautious of where you walking. Just keep your head on the swivel. When I mean that, watch your surroundings. at all times.
I almost felt Rayvon, like, a lot of what was said around there, especially with Robert's family, was just like, oh, like so-and-so was killed or so-and-so this happened. And it's so like, what got to me was how matter of fact it was. It was just like, oh yeah, like there's that happened, you know? And I think that was probably the most startling part for me. But honestly, I was given love, and you know, your environment was totally cool, and I always felt safe with you guys. So never.
And that's what I love about this documentary, Stephen, is that, you know, you really focus on that family aspect, and the moms almost steal the show, you know, in this documentary. Rayvon, your mom had so much energy and love and just lit up a room, and Robert's mom as well. And that's the testament to Black moms, you know, how much did she play a huge part in what type of man you are today?
My mom played a huge role in my life. She pushed me to be better than what she apparently wanted to be. But things happen and things change. So, I mean, she really played a big part in my life. She pushed me to be what I am today. And I really thank her for that.
Why is it so hard to get games lined up? That blew my mind. So, like, I'm looking at the stats. I'm looking at all these kids. You want to get games. Why can't I'm just shocked that people aren't coming in by droves to be like, hey, you know what? Let's challenge this team, even if it's a scrimmage. Why is it so hard to get games at Fort Dupont? For both of you.
Rayvon, you want to
go first? I'll go first. So basically Fort Dupont is basically, like I said, it's a team. It's a family. So we stick together as one. So there's no you trying to bully this person, bully that person. Like we're not going for it at all. So they find us as intimidation, one, because we're all Black. The whole team is just basically Black, and they thought we was always trying to fight. But no, we actually know how to play. So that's why teams really didn't want to play us. Or sometimes we have games, the next thing you know, it get postponed or canceled. So it's just pretty much same thing over and over.
Wow. So you guys have already been stereotyped and labeled as the bad kids in the bunch. And so if we play them, or you feel it's more of just fear that if they lose, you lost to the Black kids.
Yeah, it's been times I was actually in games, I've been called names. I brushed it off, played, kept on playing. It's nothing.
And Stephen, what was the answer there? You know, when you talk to coach, like what was really, you know, is that what it really is? You know, boils down to that, like people are intimidated by this team, or just the whole what comes with it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I think it's great that both of us were able to answer, because I think Rayvon's answer is going to be, you know, indicative of his experience or his understanding of things. When we encountered that year of the club, you know, I think the biggest thing, there's no infrastructure for games, right? It's really just kind of on these grassroots teams to figure out games with each other, and they're all far away, right? Like the team they play in the film is in New Jersey. You know, it's not like, oh, like in Toronto, there's like 100 teams that you could play, right? Whereas like logistically setting up games is very difficult, and it all falls on like basically one man's shoulders, you know, Coach Neal. And, you know, Coach Neal had a pretty difficult personal year that year. And, you know, just having the one game, you know, speaks volumes of how tough it is at times, given, the family dynamic of Fort Dupont, that if one person falls or like Coach Neal is busy or something or has personal problems, that it's very difficult as a club to just all of a sudden manifest all these games. And then there's a racial element that we didn't really explore in the film, but certainly, you know, if Rayvon's speaking to it, I'm sure that's, you know, a possibility, whether that's unconscious or conscious, you know. But as a person that just witnessed and was part of it, we just really tried to be flies on the wall and kind of just give what we saw that year on screen.
Just to see you guys come together and rally, man, that was beautiful. I wish I wanted more ice to go this way and all of that, but it's one of those great moments, you know, in this film where you really feel a part of this team, like all this hard work, because you guys are complaining. I don't want to practice anymore. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of that. And Rayvon, tell me about that. I mean, you know, I played sports, And there's something about that. The goal is right for the next game, right? The only reason you're practicing is because you want to play the next game.
It's for the
So
next game.
if you're only going to get one game, out of the whole season, like how much does that just drive you insane?
I mean, I took the practice to my advantage. I worked on things that I needed to work on ice and off. So it wasn't, for me, I really wasn't focused on the game. I was really focusing more on my skills and to be able to help my team win the next game.
Steven, to you. So this documentary almost is a piece of history in a way. And again, I don't want to give any spoilers, but we're trying
Don't give the movie away. You're telling everything.
Don't give the movie away. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
don't give the
man.
movie away.
Okay.
But Coach Dupont is trying to become a candidate for inductee into the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
Now, there's a lot of criteria that goes and get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I just want to talk to you personally as a hockey fan. Did you see the criteria? Did Coach meet those criteria right off the bat, or that's something you had to see throughout this film that opened up your eyes to see, like, oh, wow, yes, this man does qualify for an inductee candidate?
It's funny you mentioned that or even asked that question, because full disclosure, when we were about halfway through the film, when we first started the film, I had realized that there was this award. I had no idea it was this, that even existed. And I went to my co-director, AJ. I said, could we maybe submit an application? Because Coach fulfills all the criteria. And we both realized, okay, we're not the people to do that, right? And then just out of sheer, just randomness that year, there was a committee that was formed by Bill Douglas and the team that you see in the film. And it was just like, wow. Like, it was very serendipitous, put it that way. It really, really was. And to answer your question, 100% does he deserve that. And it was just rethinking what it meant to be a Hall of Famer, right? Because traditionally you're thinking wins and losses or goals and assists, whatever. But this was a man who brought the game of hockey to Southeast DC and who introduced the game in a market that traditionally was kind of left on the sidelines.
So, Steven, again to you, was the hockey community supportive on taking on a project like this? Like, you're saying, hey, you know what? I got a great idea for my next documentary. Sure. And they're like, really? Really? You think that's...
the landscape's changed a lot, right? I think since Civil Rights 2.0, I think now there's definitely more of a focus to put people of color at the forefront of these type of stories, as there should be. And that was the case when we started this as well. But I think we absolutely had support. It was always people who wanted to be part of it. We tried to sell it. We tried to get a real budget from the get-go. And unfortunately, we had some circumstances not work out for us. And we decided to just basically make this film ourselves on our own budget, and which is crazy. But we already made relationships with Rayvon and Robert and Coach Neal in the club. So it was like, it would almost be doing a disservice if we didn't. But the NHL community was very supportive. USA Hockey, the NHL, definitely opened doors for us. Financially speaking, though, it fell on our shoulders and the labor. And, but it has pros and cons, right? Because then you don't report to anybody, it's kind of just your thing. And, you can kind of make it in whatever way you want. And I will say, too, we put, when we were trying to put the film out there, we were putting myself and Kwame Mason as a co-director, who's a pretty well-known established sports Black director in Canada. We had Robert Ford, who ended up being our executive producer. But, and again, we felt like having a person of color direct this was important, but we still never got any leeway with it. And then it was just like, okay, we can't ask them to just work for free. Like, if anyone's going to do this for free, it's going to be, myself. And then, AJ jumped on board to help co-direct. So it was like, all right, we just got to do this ourselves.
Nice. I mean, honestly, you guys did a great job for whatever budget you had. It definitely came together nicely. Rayvon, I mean, what kind of pushed you through to keep going and kind of go out there and want to pursue your dream regardless?
Me personally, I take everything basically on the chin. L, I take all my losses as losses, my wins as wins. So me personally, what keeps me pushing and striving is my family and my team.
Now,
And
Rayvon, do you
how's
want to share
sorry.
that news that maybe you have something cooking with the Caps, or is that on the
Oh
DL?
yeah.
I was gonna come up to that because at the end of the film, we see that you start a job with the Capitals, and so you're helping them on the ice. Has that developed into any sizzling news?
So starting like at almost, I'm not sure when it's starting, but it's starting soon. So I'll be working part time with the Washington Capitals, with the afternoon staff, teaching other minority kids how to play street hockey.
Oh man, congratulations, brother.
Thank you.
That's big, man. That's big. That's big. That's big. I
It
mean, it's
is
not
big.
all you wanted, but it definitely is opening up the doors. Is the goal still to go to school? Are you going to college now currently?
No, right now I'm not in school right now. I'm just working.
Okay. Is that something you want to get back on, or you're like, no, my
Yes.
focus is just making a career?
No, I want to get back to school though. That's because I want to get back on the ice. I miss the ice.
And this is an interesting question for both of you. I just realized this. So the documentary ends in 2019, right? Is that correct? So then,
Yeah, technically, yeah.
so then COVID hits, right?
Yeah.
How did that affect everyone in terms of, did that, I assume even for me, like playing pickup anywhere, you couldn't do anything. So
Yeah.
how much of that did I hurt that community that the ice rink was closed and you had no really outlet, you couldn't go to school or anything? And maybe, Steven, you can tell us, you have this film kind of locked up and you can't really get it out. How did that affect you guys during COVID?
Rayvon?
It took a toll because then once COVID hit, there wasn't really much training you could really do to stay in shape to keep going and play hockey. So with the rinks being closed, it wasn't really as much on ice stuff. It was really dry land workouts basically.
You got your rollerblades on doing your thing?
Nah, I was more in the gym.
Okay. And how about you, Steven?
I mean, it's funny you ask. Like, yeah, the film chronologically ends in December-ish of 2019. We did pickups though, and the last piece of footage I shot was, I think, like February 22nd, I want to say, of 2020. So it was like literally less than a month. And then so COVID hit, and then it was like, okay, I have all this footage. We tried to get a budget for post-production. That never happened. So it was like, okay, I'm just going to edit this movie by myself. And so I just basically hibernated, pretty much still hibernating with my girlfriend, and just cranking out the edit. And that was, but I can honestly say that if Corona never happened, I would have been off doing other stuff and I would have been busy. And honestly, I will say probably the hardest part about this whole film was the edit. And I remember John Alpert, who's a pretty famous documentary director, told me before we started, he's like, oh, it's a verite doc? Okay, yeah, all your work is 80% of the work is in post-production. I'm like, come on, And then, but I realized, like, because you can cut it in so many ways with all the footage that we have. We had so many scenes. Like, what do you omit? Do you not include this scene? Do you put? But at the end of the day, we just tried to tell the most honest story as possible. But yeah, we had like 350 hours of footage, and to like cut that down to 90 minutes. I mean, that's bananas.
Well, and that's what it kind of felt like a little bit, because there were so many different stories to tell, in that documentary. So at one point I'm on this team, on this point, on this team, the family, I'm like dynamic. I want to know everything. Is coach going to be okay? Like, what's going on?
Right.
And so I love that you kept us guessing at every point.
That's great.
So I really take my hat off to you for that. What's the message that you really want people to take away from this film?
For me or for Rayvon?
For you, Steve.
I think it's kind of a two things really. One is giving a voice to Rayvon and his family, giving a voice to Robert and his family, people that may not have had an opportunity to have a soapbox and to have a platform to tell their stories to the world. I like to think of myself as someone in the service business in this film. Like, I'm servicing them, their stories. These are their stories, and I've just been lucky enough to bring it to the world. And again, the social political, angles that a lot of the film tackles, I think is just represented, very fluidly in their life experiences. And I want the world to see that and to see that this is a community that has been forgotten in most senses, but not forgotten by someone someone like Coach Neal. And that would be the final takeaway, would be to have the message of love and compassion and empathy for whatever race, whatever gender, no matter who you are, you're accepted and loved. And that message that Coach Neal brings forth every day is something that I know me and my team were very deeply passionate about spreading to the world.
How about you, Rayvon?
What I want people to take from this film is that don't never let nobody tell you that you can't do nothing or won't be nothing in your life. Whatever you do, put your mind to it and strive for greatness, in all honesty. But I'm thankful that I was able to take part in the film and stuff, and able to voice my opinion on how society really is. But with all that being said, I just really want everybody just to push for greatness and take what you can and use it to your best ability.
As we're wrapping it up here, Stephen, can you let us know when the documentary is going to be released, which date's coming out, and where to see it on?
Yeah, so basically we have our world premiere in New York City, November 14th at 1:30 at the IFC Center. We have tickets available on the Doc NYC website, but that's just to go to thecannonsdocumentary.com. All the information about the film is there, as well as links to tickets, as well as virtually will be available all across America from November 15th to the 28th through that same website at the Doc NYC Festival. So we're just so excited just to have an in-person screening with everything that's happened with the pandemic, to actually bring people together and see it in one place like it's sort of meant to be. And then, of course, have everyone across the country be able to see this in the comfort of their own home, for, I guess, about almost 2 weeks. So really excited.
No problem.
Thank you so much. Man, I really hope this film takes off. It's great, and I've been telling everybody about it. Rayvon, man, I want to see you on the ice, brother. Do your thing.
No problem. Thank you.
So do I. Get out there.
Thank you, man. Be safe.